Welcome back to Ink and Ecstasy with Liz and Grim. Today we're going to be discussing how we got into erotica.
So, what caused you to explore writing in erotica?
It's really not that simple. It really goes back to, I don't know, probably like 15 years or more prior to actually starting to write. I didn't write for the longest time. So I read a flash fiction on 4chan. Um,
Is this going to be appropriate to talk about?
so this story, I'm using air quotes if you can't see me.
It was implied in your tone.
If you can't see me. Yeah. So this story had a title that I won't repeat here, and it's it's not PG friendly. Well, not like anything we're talking about is PG friendly, but this isn't even rated R friendly. All right. It's just like
Yeah, let's not get into the details of that.
it was, yeah, no. So that was the first thing that I ever read that wasn't published. I'm not talking about just erotica either. I mean of any genre, because I didn't even know that was even a thing.
Everything is a thing.
Self-publishing, you know?
Mhm.
And I think I kind of combined the idea of erotic short stories with, mm, let's just call it things that I can do.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
Well, do you remember when you hadn't yet come close to putting in the number of words into a story that could be considered a book? Do you remember?
um,
Sometime before that point,
okay.
right? So prior to actually writing a book, did you ever think that you could write a book?
I still don't think I could write a book.
I mean, just actually,
Getting the numbers down.
yeah,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
just writing enough material.
To fill a book.
Yeah.
Well, I always knew I could do an anthology.
Well, that doesn't
But
that
like I
doesn't
said,
count.
we've talked about this before, but there is not a period of my life where I wasn't either telling stories or writing them. So, no, I don't remember that.
So there was no point in your life where you did not think that you could fill up a book with one story.
With one story, yeah, there was a time when I didn't think I could fill it up with one story, but
That's what I'm asking. I'm just talking about the one.
just the one, yeah.
Just the one. Okay. So at that point, I don't even remember what the hell I was even talking about now.
um, you were talking about a story you read on 4chan that we're not going to get into the details of because it was very not appropriate.
Not that I was actually like looking for any of that stuff. It's just, the people
Yeah.
around there. They just post anything and then they're just like, ha 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 ha, ha. I just made you read that.
I've never been on 4chan. It scared me.
I haven't been on, it's probably been like 15 years. Anyway, the idea of writing a book is daunting to most people, I think.
Mhm. To most writers, anyway.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm going to write a book. And they don't put any thought into what that actually entails.
Yeah. So basically, the idea of writing a book, it was kind of outside the list of things that I believed that I could do. Right.
Right.
And so when I saw, for lack of a better word, self published stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just, I don't know, like I just tucked that little nugget of information away in the back of my brain somewhere. And then it was maybe, I don't know, 10 years later. And that idea popped into my head that there might be, websites with erotica on them. And then I did a quick Google search and was very surprised to find a lot of stories out there written by regular people.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them not so regular. Uh, and then so I kind of just read for about 10 years, but every now and then I'd make notes about different things along the way. I'd jot down story ideas and some basic plot points, but I never really had the time to write. I developed a lot of new ideas during this time, both from reading individual stories and also noticing tropes along the way among everything that I had read, right?
Mhm.
And then, deriving new plots from those ideas. You know how it goes.
I do.
And then that kind of got me to last year when I actually started writing.
Okay, well, congrats. You answered the questions on personal exploration then. So that's exactly what that kind of thing was asking.
Well, hang on. Um, how your curiosity led you to explore different genres and forms of writing. I wasn't writing to begin with.
It didn't ask how you were writing, it said how you explored them.
It said different.
Yeah.
It was basically okay.
I was going to say, up until that point, you had only encountered works that were published traditionally.
Yeah.
Self published is both a different genre and a different form of writing.
How is that a different genre?
Self published is a different like style of writing. It's different. It's different than traditional published because you have genres within that realm that you can't explore traditionally, like hardcore erotica. So
I understand your point there, but I mean, you can self-publish nonfiction and you can.
it's not like a genre itself.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
We don't have to follow the bullet points to a like precise T. That's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. Okay. I just.
They're guides.
Oh my God.
Look, I have slept like 4 hours today.
Oh no.
I'm the one that's supposed to be not getting things.
There's supposed to be like one entry point, and mine was a reading experience.
Okay, well, if I don't lay things out, I am gonna forget where I was and I am going to go off topic a lot.
Uh-huh.
So the bullet points that I write out are intended to be a guide for me on how the conversation should progress because I'm not good at conversing with people.
Oh my gosh. Why did you? Okay.
What?
Cool. Nothing.
You asked me to share my bullet points with you. You didn't say they had to be for you too.
I didn't ask you to share them with me.
You did a few days ago. You said we should share the bullet points just so we have an idea of what we're talking about.
Hey, people are listening.
I know. The only thing we share is the topic and the bullet points, just so we're on the same page, which this time clearly we were not because I did not do my bullet points until literally the last minute.
Yes, yes, but my main concern is that I don't want to hear mommy and daddy fighting. Okay?
Okay. I have heard that reference so many times lately.
Really?
Yes. And I'd never heard it before. And then, like, in the last 2 months, I think I've heard it like 6 times. Also, what's wrong with fighting?
No, there's nothing wrong. Nothing's wrong. I was just it's a fucking joke, Liz. Jeez.
We have discussed this. Sometimes what I say is not meant as seriously as it sounds.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so you got into your personal exploration with reading kind of being the pathway to writing for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, for me it was always that I liked writing. So there was always a story, even like a story in my mind even before I could write. And then things like I've explored and dabbled in all kinds of things like high fantasy, sci-fi, coming of age stories, thrillers. I have a young adult story I've been working on. I do a lot of really bad angsty poetry. And I do a lot of like supernatural and psychological horror type things. But as far as erotica, that has only become a focal point in probably like the last 10 or 15 years. So probably right around the same timeline as for you with reading, but for me it was just the writing side because I didn't really read erotica. But even with that, it was interactions with people that largely drew that because I started, well, I guess it was probably longer than 10, 15 years ago. It was probably like maybe 20 to 25 years ago, maybe longer, which we're not going to get into. Um, but yeah, as far as like erotic style writing, I initially did role playing online and talking in chat rooms and things like that. So that was my entry point of personal exploration with erotica. Was I enjoyed talking to people and finding out what they liked, and then catering conversations to that.
Okay. That's an interesting way to word it.
To word it, why is that?
Catering your conversations to things that people like.
Mhm. How would you word it?
I don't know that I would even ever say such a thing.
What do you mean? What? Why? Why not?
It's just a personality difference. Like if, for instance, you said, yesterday I ate a pizza with olives on it
Ew.
and it was fucking delicious, right?
You would know that I've been kidnapped and I'm being held hostage somewhere because ew.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we did have that conversation one time. Yeah, that's just not something that I would ever say. So to hear somebody say that, it would just be weird. It would just kind of be like, oh, okay. I think somewhere deep down, I knew that people like you existed. I just never met any of them. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's yeah. Okay, so I am a unicorn. Let's move on. No, it's just my conversations. I wasn't a good conversationalist. I did not do well talking to people. I was very shy and introverted, and online I kind of got to flourish in that I could talk to people and learn what they liked and learn about them and their interests, and I could converse that way. And it didn't really matter that, I was focusing on their sexual interests. It was just still conversation and a way to practice talking to people for me.
Okay. So now we're continuing to talk about how we became such great big perverts.
Yeah, we're getting into that. So yeah, mine started with chat rooms on AOL and horny guys. So
Okay. Do you want me to leave that in the podcast?
I don't care.
All right. Okay.
I'm pretty sure everybody that knows about this podcast already knows that about me, so I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked seeing what people liked, and I liked experimenting with that stuff. So yeah, it was a fun way to explore that safely without having to meet anybody in person and just through words, because it helped me be a better writer too.
Yeah, you never met anyone in person, did you?
I mean, we're not gonna get into that.
All right. Moving on then. Moving on.
To the next bullet point that you have nothing for.
I don't even know where we're at. You can lead this thing.
Reading experience. So what I was going to do with this is I was going to bring up a specific book that kind of got me to explore writing erotica a little more seriously instead of just in chat rooms and stuff like that, but like actually write stories that way. And that book is, I have no idea if I'm going to pronounce this right or not, but Palimpsest, and it's by Catherine Valente, which was published in March of 2009. And the basic idea of that story is that it follows four different people who are kind of interconnected by loss of something. Like they all have a particular type of loss that they're dealing with. And through that loss, they are able to enter this city that only exists at night, and you can only get there by having sex with somebody who's already affected by um, having knowledge of it, having experience with it. So it's basically could be seen as a curse or a gift, depending on how you look at it. But it basically one person who has been to this city has sex with somebody who has not been with this to the city. And when they wake up the next morning, they have a tattoo on their body that's part of a map. And that allows them entry into the city, which, it's basically where everybody lives out their biggest fantasies or fears, both. It's a really interesting story, in my opinion. It's extremely long, but the character development is really nice. And I love the idea of the tattoo, like being passed from person to person, almost like an STD, but not, because it's basically a ticket to this other world. So it's got all these kind of like layered aspects that you could look at it, where it's people dealing with loss in their grief. They're finding this almost addiction like experience with this city and the things that they can do in this city. So yeah, I don't know, I really liked it, and that's what kind of helped me see that I could do erotica in a way that could be deeper than just sex scene after sex scene after sex scene. Like, it could have a plot tying those scenes together.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. But yeah, that was the book I was going to mention.
Cool.
As far as, guided me towards taking erotic a little more seriously and writing it with a more serious eye to, what I included in the story. Which I'm assuming you have nothing for that one, because you said that you thought my bullet points were way too fucking many.
Not anything other than what I just mentioned, which I didn't actually mention it. But no, I just kind of stumbled into this world. I basically one day I was standing outside diagonally. Diagonally. Diagonally? Yeah, basically one day I was standing outside Diagon Alley, and I picked up a magic wand that someone had dropped, and then whoosh, I was ushered into a world of magic. And God, that's just a fucking terrible fucking metaphor.
It's fine.
I just stumbled my way in, and I haven't been able to find my way out.
I would argue that's a good thing. Well, I mean, like, yeah, I've always kind of been on this side of things, so I find that so fascinating that you just kind of accidentally stumbled in. Because it's like I can just picture like me and my pervert friends sitting around, and then this random person showing up, us being like, "Hey, you want to read?"
God. Oh man.
And then not letting you leave.
And then not letting me leave.
Yeah.
Oh man. Nope, you're staying. You're one of us now.
Yep.
I'm just like, well, wait a minute.
Before you know it, you're writing your own stories.
Before you know it, 10 years. I mean, basically the same thing.
And then the next bullet point I had on this was highlight how reading erotica allowed you to appreciate the nuances of human desire and relationships. For me, small things matter to me more now. Things that I used to consider kind of incidental, meaningless things, like a specific touch or a look, playful banter. Those things I pay more attention to now because of erotica, because those often play such key parts in building up the tension, the sexual tension between characters. And it really can be something as simple as a touch an innocent touch that kind of ignites a spark between characters, and I find that so fascinating. But it's one of those things I never really noticed before, I've really thought about before. And it's that, actions carry weight. They carry thoughts and intent, and they carry like every action in a story, it matters. You don't want to draw attention to an action if it's not going to make a difference in the story. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, a person's not going to go out of their way for someone that they dislike, but if they like a person, then they might be willing to move things around for them, make things work. And it can be something as simple as you can have rivals in a story, but they butt heads throughout. But then there's one little action that one character makes toward the other that shows that they actually care about that person. You know what I mean?
You and your freaking rivals, man.
I like rivalry, okay? I think it's fun.
I mean, yeah. Sure, yeah.
To me, it's a better dynamic than friends to lovers because that's kind of a given in most cases.
Well, but you still anyway. Okay, look. Any way that you can create any kind of conflict is good,
Oh yeah.
as long as you can draw it out and build erotic tension. Okay, and I guess sure, friends to lovers might be more common, but if that's the way a person thinks, then I guess that's the way a person thinks, isn't it?
Yeah. But like there's nothing wrong with friends to lovers. It's just to me it's not as interesting. I still enjoy them. They're still good stories.
I mean, sure.
But
Yeah.
there's just something more alluring to people who have some kind of rivalry going on, especially if it's like a work rivalry. I love those.
Hmm.
Like those are my favorite thing is work rivalries.
Oh, wait a minute. That's why you were so interested in that story back in December, the one with music. You remember that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very into that one.
Yeah, whatever happened to that?
It's sitting on a Google Doc somewhere, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll have to pick that up someday.
Yeah, I mean, once this gets popular, we can have something to release with that. Because it was a really good idea, and I really do want to explore that.
Yeah. Okay, so now what? I don't remember what we were talking about before I so rudely changed the subject.
You were supposed to tell me about how erotica has helped you or allowed you to appreciate nuances in human desire and relationships that you maybe didn't appreciate before you got into erotica.
I mean, I guess it's really all about what people want. Like like empathy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Is that an answer?
That is an answer.
Yeah. Just
Elaborate?
do I have to?
I would like you to.
So, yeah, basically just trying to figure out different things to write about and then just trying to sort out how it works
Mm-hmm.
when you don't have anyone that, maybe wants to get peed on or whatever. Like, how do you work that out?
Jellyfish sting.
Like, why do people like to get cucked? Why do people like bondage? You just sort of sit with it.
So the emotion side of it.
Yeah. So you just sort of sit with it until it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into that, psychological aspect of it. And then you just go, oh, okay. I know how to write a character that likes X now, but I didn't before because I didn't understand. Like, I just thought, well, you're writing about bondage. You just want to write about a character that can't get away. And that's it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrong.
And so your opinion has changed now.
Yeah. Well, over time, yeah. I mean, you have to look at things from other points of view. And
I want to make an observation here. I've read some of your earlier stories that you've written and some of your more recent ones, and I can see a big difference in how you approach emotions in your characters.
uh-huh.
You've definitely gotten more involved in exploring that side of things.
Yeah, you know what was really funny is when I first started writing, like I would write one line of dialogue and then it would get read by someone else and they would go, "Man, that character's really a bitch, huh?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then they would just go, "Well, this line and this other line." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I just didn't."
Make a connection.
So I basically just ended the line of dialogue with "she said," but then didn't say jokingly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so it changes the entire meaning of the sentence. Like you might say, "Ah, you are so stupid," but you don't actually mean that you're stupid. You're just saying that's just a crazy joke to tell or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I said, "Ah, get the fuck out of here," you know,
Mm-hmm.
if you read that without any other like kind of
Context.
clarification or
Mm-hmm.
context, then people just have to take it to mean that you want them to get the fuck out of there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way to take that in.
True.
So yeah, when I first started writing, that was one thing that I wasn't always really thinking about, that because I was thinking about the stuff that I was thinking about, and I wasn't looking at the words on the page and going, okay, does this actually make sense from one sentence to the next? You know what I mean?
Right.
It was really only probably like 3 or 4 months before that when I wrote my first story, and God, it was just so horrible. I I was basically just writing it just so I wouldn't have to think about it anymore, you know?
Welcome to being a writer.
Yeah, but that's not how you should do it. Like you still need to like do it right.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, that's basically how most writers get started.
I mean, I guess.
Their first
I
story
wouldn't
is
know.
shit. But like you get consumed with an idea. That's just how writing gets started. I think everybody's first story is probably shit. Okay. So yeah, moving on to creative outlet. Okay. So,
And we are 2 sections in.
yeah, exactly. But a lot of this is just bullshit banter that we just got off topic on. Um Moving along, how has writing erotica become a form of self-expression for you or a way to explore your fantasies or desires or something like that? Is this one of those that you had no answer to?
I mean, I didn't really have answers to like any of these.
Yeah, I know.
So I think that writing is a form of self expression,
Agreed.
as is any art, right?
Right.
And the thing with writing, what's so interesting about it to me is basically just connecting all of the plot points, right?
Right.
It's introducing the characters and having them be believable, introducing the plot, kicking it off, and then you put these characters into the plot and you say go, right?
Right.
And then you see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a form of creativity that's really interesting to me.
It is. Because there's always going to be a part of yourself within those characters too, whether you intend it or not.
Yeah, I'd say the things that I write about are less desires and they're more fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
right? It just because it's about fantasy, right? That's
Right.
what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you're writing fiction, I don't know about you, but I want to write something that's not going to happen in real life or would be exceedingly rare. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that. I kind of go back and forth on that. Sometimes it's fun to write something that could be realistic, something that could happen. And other times I want to be as far away from that as possible.
I've been thinking about a lot of sci-fi stuff lately, a lot of submission and just, forced closeness situations that just, I mean, yeah, sure, maybe it could happen. I mean, conceivably it could, right?
Right.
But the possibility, so fucking low, it's basically zero.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that I can see. I can see that within my own writing too, that, the odds of this actually happening are pretty fucking low.
Yeah, I just wrote, well, I didn't write one today, but I put 4K into story notes for a new story, even though I haven't finished up Snowden with Dad yet. That one's still got, I don't know, that one's either got a couple hundred or I could probably just tie it up now, but I should probably put in like another 1,000, honestly. Or people are going to get to the end and they're going to go, what the fuck? We were fucking shortchanged.
That is one thing that you and I do completely differently. You look at stories and you can see how many words you like are estimated to have before you can finish a story. I can't do that because I don't know.
You just have to think about your story as a collection of scenes.
Right, this is the thing. I don't know what other scenes are going to be. We've talked about this before. I do not know what I'm going to write when I sit down to write, even when I've already started a story.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So where it goes, when it ends, I don't know. And my endings really suffer for that because they often just stop.
Yeah.
But I like doing that. Life like doesn't have neat little tidy endings. An experience sometimes just ends.
That would be so interesting. Actually, if you wrote a story where maybe there wasn't necessarily a climax and then it just ended.
That's kind of a slice of life thing.
Yeah, but like there would have to be some kind of, you know, theme.
Yeah, it literally could just be like a day in the life of kind of thing.
No, I mean like, stuff would happen and then it would be like uh Bill walked over to the fridge so he could make a sandwich.
The
The
end.
end.
How to piss off your readers 101.
And then you actually write the end.
Yeah, just so they know. Yeah, one of the biggest complaints I ever got on my stories was that they always leave more questions than they answer.
Uh-huh.
Because I like doing that. I don't like tidy packages. I don't like tying up all the loose ends. I like there to be like the potential for more, even if I never write more.
So you don't like tidy packages. Do you like, big bulging ones?
Depends on how well wrapped they are.
Okay. What does that even mean?
We'll leave that to imaginations.
How well wrapped they are. No. Okay. All right. Okay. All right then. Um
Don't ask questions
I
you
w-
don't want to know the answer to.
I okay. Um anyway, did you have anything that you wanted to say on this topic, or what are we
um,
doing?
I mean, I write a lot of stuff that's not my own fantasies and desires. Like, I literally make it a point to write things I'm not into just to see if I can.
Mhm.
And I mean, for the most part, I think I've done a pretty damn good job considering the reactions and comments I've gotten. But like, there are definitely some where I do explore my own fantasies and desires, but at least while I was on Literotica, they were not within the realm of allowed content. They were a little on the violent side.
We're not talking about publishing. We're just talking about writing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, these are the stories that I don't really show people because they are very personal to me.
All right. Well, we can move on.
Yeah. Um, has writing allowed you to kind of go into any topics that you might consider taboo or unconventional in forms of other types of literature or writing?
Yeah. I mean, erotica in general is unconventional. It's not
Mm-hmm.
really something that people write about traditionally speaking. Like, you can't just go to the public library and say, yeah, where's your smut?
And they point you directly to Stephen King. Um,
Yeah. Does that make sense?
yeah. Because for most people, like when you say smut, they interpret it as, I'm going to say, like lowbrow writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Basically, things that aren't considered, literary or intelligent necessarily. Even though, like, I personally read a lot of erotica that, from an emotional aspect, puts to shame a lot of those literary works that, are supposed to be such good representations of people and dynamics and challenges that, people face.
Yo, classic literature is a bunch of shit.
That being said, I do like some classic literature.
Okay, yeah, sure, fine. But like, you know that 200 and 300 years ago, there were only like 6 people writing. And I don't know, these freaking English professors or whoever, they're out there going, out of those 6 people, they wrote 3 classics. Really? I don't think so. You shouldn't even have one classic out of that. You're just saying like every other person is out there writing some magnificent work. I don't think so. Why are there so many classic pieces of literature from over 100 years ago? And now you have 150 million motherfuckers writing books every single fucking year. And where's our modern list of quote unquote literature? It's still so much fucking smaller than the classics when nobody was even fucking writing, basically. It's a bunch of bullshit, if you ask me.
Well, like a lot of it is classic because it's old. I mean, that's just what it is.
That's fucking stupid.
Right. Oh, I didn't answer that one actually. So I was kind of going into the same idea as you were with this, and like my whole interpretation of it was that sexual exploration is often overlooked in most forms of literature, particularly in like mainstream stuff. A lot of it is fade to black when it comes to sex scenes, which sometimes that works. Filling it in with your own imagination can sometimes be much more intense than anything that a writer could put down. And sometimes the written sex scene is so laughably bad that it ruins the rest of the story. So, but even the ones that do actually tend to like actually write out the sex scene and do it fairly well, they tend to be formulaic and use wording that distances itself from the kind of, dirty ideas of sex. Think manhood, rod, petals, shit like that. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Basically making anything but cock and cunt or pussy or dick or.
I mean, there's only so many times you can say cock and dick. You know what I'm saying?
To a degree, yeah. But there are other points, like there are other terms you can use. It doesn't always have to be cock. It can be glands. It can be shaft. It can be balls. The whole thing is included. You can break it down into parts.
Yeah, sure. But you're talking about different parts, right? But
Mm-hmm.
still, though, you need to mention them a lot.
Only if you get really detailed into the scene, which I tend to.
Yeah, you just gotta say something different. I mean, every once in a while.
Yeah, sometimes it can be good to switch it up, but when every single word is manhood and sex, like referring to a woman's
Okay, yeah,
vulva as their sex,
yeah.
that gets annoying after a little while.
I guess if it's every time, then it would be like, what are you doing? Just say pussy.
Yeah, a lot of mainstream writing will not use the terms cock, pussy, or cunt, which I'm super annoyed by, to be honest. Because, like, one of my favorite things is to have a very sort of feminine, prim, proper woman who will refer to the anatomy in medical terms right until she's in the midst of sex. And then it gets dirty and, you know, vulgar fast. That is one of my favorite things to do
Hmm.
because people are complex. They are never just one thing.
Right.
And that is something that I like to explore, and that is one way I do that. The person that a character is outside of the bedroom isn't always the same person as they are inside the bedroom.
Yeah.
And I like exploring that. I like writing those characters. That is another thing about, I guess, unconventional or taboo that I like to do. There are just so many times I can handle flowery prose for
Yeah.
sexual interactions.
It's fucking, yeah. I mean,
It's not arousing to me.
every now and then, right? Like, I don't like, yeah, there, you mentioned rod. I really don't like using that, but what I like using even less than that is pole. It's like, I'm sorry, man. Pole. A pole doesn't necessarily sound stiff. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. It
Like,
doesn't sound appealing at all.
if you're talking about a fishing pole, those things are really very bendy. You know what I'm saying? They're very bendy
And very narrow.
and very narrow, but super fucking long. Think about that length, though.
Yeah, the length isn't the goal.
I know, but I just wanted you to think about the length of my pole. I mean, no. Okay, no. I just no. We're just talking about an imaginary pole, an imaginary fishing pole. Jeez, get your mind out of the gutter.
You know me. Like, it's been in the gutter this whole fucking time.
I mean, when was the last time your mind wasn't in the gutter? Name the year within 5 seconds, and I'll I don't know, something.
1987.
Okay. All right. Um anyway,
Hmm.
so rod and pole. Okay, so pole is just right out, right?
Hmm.
But oh, I remember what I was going to say. I read this story one time and the narrator said something like, and I shit you not, his name was Rod. And I was like, okay. And the author never mentioned Rod's rod.
I was just thinking that.
Never mentioned Rod's rod.
You can't say a line with that like that and not use it.
He didn't say, he did not use that line one time in the story, Liz. He used it 3 times.
His name is Rod.
I shit you not, his name is Rod. 3 times it was used.
And they never mentioned Rod's rod.
Not that I remember, no.
That is such a missed opportunity. Like, you can't make that setup and not follow through.
You know what would have been funny, though, is if there was a line and then it said, and then Rod whipped out his massive ... pole.
Now, see, that I could get behind because if you're because then you're just intentionally fucking with the reader. So, yeah, flowery prose, I hate it, except for when used like sparingly and with intent. Like, yeah, that story, Rod's Rod. if that I could get behind, because that would be clearly a joke, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Even what you just said with raw dot 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 and then using a different word pull and doing that every fucking time, I would find that hilarious. Like that
Yeah.
is just 100% fucking with the readers, and I am here for that. Like,
Yeah. Anything to make them pay attention.
mm-hmm. Because it's like that video of the woman who's watching somebody put like shapes in a box. You're expecting them to put it in the right
Right.
box, and they keep
Right.
not doing it. It's the same kind of idea. You're expecting them to use rod, and they never do it, and it's just like a total fucking tease the whole time. I love that.
And not that I'm like writing for the reader. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just writing because, I mean, I don't know. Why am I writing? I guess it's basically just to get the idea and the entire plot out of my head, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a challenge. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because sometimes I think, all right, I want to have a story where the climax begins like this. How can I make that happen? And then if I can make that happen, oh man, I actually get a little sense of satisfaction out of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like very fucking rare for me.
Sorry, completely off topic. I was thinking about my work week this past week, and I realized I worked 8 days in a row. And it just occurred to me that throughout the week that I've worked, like the whole 8 days, I worked 69 hours.
69.00?
Exactly.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, that just amused me. I it just popped in the head and amused me. Um, so what were you saying?
Uh, you were about to move to the next topic,
Was
I think.
I?
Yeah.
Oh, well. This conversation got away from us a little bit, but we covered what I think are some interesting topics around our writing. If you've stuck with us, the next part will be coming out in a couple of weeks. So subscribe to be notified of its release. In the meantime, you can find our writing and socials on inkandecstasy.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed.